What's the most instant regret you've ever seen? There's this guy at my job named Brandon who thinks he's way smarter than everyone else. Works at the auto parts store downtown, always bragging about how he could run the place better than our manager, Rick. Every single day, Brandon would roll his eyes whenever Rick gave instructions. He'd mutter stuff like, "I could do this job blindfolded," or "Rick doesn't know what he's doing." Well, last Tuesday, Rick had to leave early for a dentist appointment. Before he left, he asked Brandon to handle the afternoon delivery from our main supplier. Simple stuff, really. Just check the boxes against the invoice and stock the shelves. Brandon got this huge grin on his face. Finally, his chance to show everyone how it's done. The delivery truck pulled up around 2 p.m. with about 40 boxes of car parts. Brandon waved the driver off without even checking the invoice. Told him everything looked good. The driver seemed confused, but Brandon insisted he had it covered. Soon as the truck left, Brandon started opening boxes and throwing parts on shelves wherever he felt like it. Thing is, Brandon never actually looked at what was being delivered. He just assumed it was the usual brake pads and oil filters we normally get. But this was a special order for the garage next door. Expensive stuff. Racing clutches, turbo parts, custom exhaust pieces. Some of those parts cost more than what I make in a month. Around 4 p.m., these two guys in coveralls walk in looking for their special order. They had a work order showing they paid $3 grand for performance parts. Brandon went white as a sheet. He started scrambling around the store looking for boxes he hadn't opened yet, but it was too late. He'd already mixed everything up with our regular inventory. The guys started getting angry. They needed those parts for a customer's car that was supposed to be ready by Friday. One of them called Rick on his cell phone. I could hear Rick yelling through the phone from across the store. Brandon kept trying to explain, but just made it worse. Rick came racing back from his dentist appointment with gauze still in his mouth. His face was so red I thought he might pass out. Turns out Brandon had signed for a delivery worth $15,000 without checking anything. The racing parts were completely mixed up with our regular stuff, and some had already been sold to other customers. It gets worse, though. While Rick was trying to sort out the mess, Brandon decided this was the perfect time to defend himself. He actually told Rick that if he'd been properly trained, this never would have happened. Said Rick should have left better instructions. Then Brandon had the nerve to suggest Rick should give him a raise for handling such a big responsibility. Rick just stared at him for like 10 seconds. Then he asked Brandon to come to the office. Through the glass window, we could see Rick talking very calmly while Brandon got more and more animated. Brandon was pointing at stuff and waving his hands around like he was giving some big presentation. 5 minutes later, Brandon walked out carrying a cardboard box with his stuff in it. His face was completely red, and he looked like he was about to cry. Rick followed behind him holding Brandon's final paycheck. Brandon tried one last time to argue, said Rick was making a huge mistake and would regret losing such a valuable employee. Rick just handed him the check and said, "The only regret I have is not doing this sooner." Brandon stood there for a second like he couldn't believe what just happened. Then he grabbed his box and stormed out. But here's the best part. In his rush to leave, Brandon forgot his car keys were in his work jacket, which was now in the box he was carrying. So he had to come back inside and ask Rick for his keys while all of us watched. Rick made him wait 5 minutes while he looked for them. We all knew exactly where they were, but nobody said anything. Brandon just stood there sweating while Rick slowly searched through the jacket pockets. When Rick finally handed over the keys, Brandon mumbled something about how we'd all be sorry when he found a better job.